every member of the original PayPal like exec team had built a bomb when they were kids.
Ah, the fact that I'm from Egypt means that would not be a good approach for me, but I will leave
That's
that to
not
the
fair.
PayPal mafia.
Is this Uber available?
It is available.
All right. Hey,
How are you?
Marwan,
Good
let's
to
do
see you.
this. Seatbelts.
Let's do definitely seatbelts. I do not want to catch a ticket. So yeah, let's head to the Golden Gate
All
Bridge,
right.
quintessentially San Francisco,
Yeah,
and a
let's do it.
beautiful drive. Most importantly, don't have to worry about traffic. How's your past week been? Have you been going into any in-person stuff that's been interesting or
Uh, I mean, every day it's like the new gold rush out here. Except I will say it's harrowing with all the traffic right now to try to. I'm like nervous for you driving and
Agre-
narrating. It's insane.
agreed. So
Yeah.
funny story about that. Usually I can use full self-driving, and I was trying to block the fact that it can sense my awareness, and
Mm.
doing that got my full self-driving blocked for a
Oh
week.
no. Oh
So
no.
I'm not a good driver. I just got my license, and we don't have full self-driving. Just thought
Uh,
I'd let you know now that you've already committed to
you've
this.
been penalized. You're in the box, the penalty box for a week. I haven't heard that before. A week. I guess you're not fully banned.
Yeah, I'm only banned for a week. Tried calling support to get them to
Yeah.
resolve it, and they were like, "Nope,
Nope.
can't do that." I think they were on to me.
Yeah.
The AI is getting better and better. Um, Speaking of cameras and AI is getting better and better, you just so happen to be working on a company that is kind of working on that space. What are some of the things you're most excited by with respect to computer vision and different ways in which AI can help security?
Yeah, well, I'm working on a business called Sauron. It's a home security business, and like our lessons and our insights and all the innovation has really come from the self-driving car kind of industry. So, a lot of the team, our co-founder Vasu, she comes out of this industry. We've probably spent what, like $100 billion over the last decade in self-driving, and what's come out of that is like Waymo and Tesla's FSD, but a lot of great work in perception and computer vision and so on. And so we're effectively repurposing that. We see that quite a bit in tech, where you take innovation in one area, like Velcro was developed up in for the space shuttle, and you bring it down, and it becomes a great way to fasten your shoes. And so we're taking a lot of that development and using it in home security, and developing just what you would think is like the ultimate in home security, a system that understands everything happening around you.
I think that's very much needed. And actually, earlier last year, I lost almost everything due to a
Oh
home
no.
break-in.
Oh no.
That was pretty painful.
Where was that?
And this was in LA.
Hmm.
And funny story about that is my girlfriend's brother's ashes, we had put an air tag on because
Mm.
those are obviously very,
Hmm.
it's has huge sentimental value. And when they were stolen, the only reason we were able to get them back is because there was an air tag on them. And the crazy thing is, the person ended up at an ICU with it in their pocket, the
Oh
air tag
my
in there,
God.
and they had overdosed on trying to snort it,
Oh my God.
which was absolutely insane. And I think
Wow.
it
What
was,
what were they? Do you know their diagnosis?
I'm unsure, but maybe like there's like formaldehyde or something in there that's
Yes,
not
right.
great
Some
for you.
chemical that's probably not great.
It was in a little
Oh,
vial that
wow.
looked like,
Like it was
yeah.
something that you should snort. Not that I do. If I see a vial of something that looks snortable, I don't do that. But
Generally would
conceivably,
not
if you steal something, you might end up snorting it. Well, that's an incredible story.
yeah, and it's really cool that you're building technology to actually be able to prevent some of this stuff, monitor it. Increasingly, I think a lot of the systems that we depend on for safety are not really serving us the way that they promised. Where do you think there's room for companies to potentially be able to tackle some of these problems?
Well, we've seen in other segments really great progress there. Garrett over at Flock Security, if you're familiar with them, out based in Atlanta, Georgia, are going after the kind of local government market with their license plate readers and have done an incredible job really building this network around the country and taking advantage of computer vision and LPR's license plate reader.
Mhm.
That's a TLA, by the way, a three-letter acronym.
Ah, gotcha.
You got to get your TLAs down. But an LPR, license plate reader, has solves. The statistic is up to like 10% of all crime in the United States is now solved by this flock safety, like platform really that's in place. So they've done a great job with cities and municipalities. I think we were first inspired to build this by my time at Founders Fund. Trey Stevens was just starting Anduril, and their first product was a border sentry product. And we always would say, wow, I really want this Anduril thing for my home,
Mm.
because this thing could spot, like the smallest animal like 5 miles out, and different on borders and in forward operating bases and so on. So lots of great inspiration for this and lots of areas, but we're applying it to home security. There just hasn't been much that's happened there in the last 10 years. I mean, Ring was a lot of fun and really exciting when it came out, and then it just, we haven't seen that next act, and we want to be that.
Agreed. And there's definitely been huge technological innovations since that came out, huge advancements in computer vision, as you've mentioned, through a lot of the investment for self-driving vehicles. And I think one of the things we forget is when we make huge investments in one company or one area, oftentimes there's other areas we're indirectly investing in, maybe without even knowing it. AI is obviously one example of this right now, but what do you think are other areas where huge investment is going for a primary purpose,
Oh, that's a
but
great
that might
question.
have interesting sort of externalities?
That's a great question. Wow. Yes. I mean, AI is like like ubiquitous example because it's such a platform that applies in so many areas. And like that's what our job is as builders or investors or so on, is to like find those next platforms. In the 90s, this internet thing came and Mark Andreessen built Mozilla. He then commercialized Netscape, and that was the platform. The internet was the platform for so many great businesses and so much innovation. And then we had, I don't know, like Steve Jobs and iOS came out, and we had the mobile revolution happen. And then, now it's Sam Altman has kicked things off with OpenAI, and it's just incredible. I got the pitch today from somebody working on an insurance related AI business. And so just the breadth of things is so wide, and that's exciting. And of course, now we're in traffic because of all the tech innovation. It's RSA conference, so
Ah,
we're like right in the heart of like RSA um,
I forget how
traffic
many
hell.
conferences there are in San Francisco, and maybe it's because sometimes I feel like real San Francisco almost doesn't go to conferences.
Hmm.
Not to
We just try to avoid conferences.
Yeah, so I'm curious, like, what do you do as someone that doesn't live here if you want to get the true Bay Area experience, um, or I guess Silicon Valley experience? How do you crack in?
Uh, like ask Sam Altman. You create OpenAI and revolutionize computing again. And no, yeah. How do you crack it? Like every day, there's like this is a gold rush town, so it's so exciting because every day I was telling you about the insurance AI business. That was an Oxford student from Denmark,
Hmm.
and we get these people and kind of flying in from all around the world, and it's exciting because there's so much talent coming in right now. It's a pretty great time, and then we have Mayor Lurie who's cleaning up the town. He's doing a great job. Oh, but we're not supposed to
We're
talk
not we're not
politics.
supposed to speak about politics,
Yeah.
but if anyone out there wants to make San Francisco cleaner, better, safer. That's not really politics.
That's
That's
not
just
politics.
that's just good. Yeah, I do think there's something to be said for like, yes, there's politics, and then there's just stuff that like we can all agree on is good. Safety, keeping the town clean, making sure people are taken care of, making sure
Mhm.
people are healthy. Um, as someone that's not from the U.S., I think uh, politics
Amen
is
to
very
that.
sensitive here.
I thought these guys were doing something very important up here. They're just
it,
having lunch. I realize
it
now.
sure looks
It's
like it.
three police officers that you need a front camera kind of view as well.
Yeah, it looks. I mean,
It looks like they were like huddling
this
to
will eventually
a
slowly
big
build up
bus.
to a multicam view.
Yes, yes.
Actually, funny enough, I'm shooting. This is a little bit on the down low, but shooting the first one of these in a
Mhm.
self-driving car
Oh,
with
great.
someone who's
What a
working on a
great
self-driving
idea. I
car
love it.
company. So
Yeah.
that's exciting.
I would be a little more comfortable with Waymo, to be honest.
Mm,
Is that political? No, that's not. I'm just kidding. I take Waymo every day. I love it. It's like one of the best innovations of the last few years.
agreed. It's awesome.
It's such a great experience. It's like your first iPhone experience kind of thing.
The one thing I will say though is it's kind of crazy how quickly it normalizes that you're in a
Oh
self-driving
my
car.
God, you're right.
That's kind of a you're just like, oh yeah, like I'm just in a self-driving car now, going
Mhm.
about my day, and it gets just as boring as anything else.
It has, but we will continue to marvel at the engineering feat achieved there.
So, question, you are always doing so many things,
Mhm.
and at the same time succeeding at multiple things at the same time. I think there is this Valley mantra of, you know, radical focus being the way to achieve things. How are you able to build a company and build a venture fund and support founders and effectively incubate small funds? How are you able to find the time to do all that?
Uh, I think it's very in vogue to try to do too many things at once. It's probably not great for your health or something. But been very popularized by um, Elon, and building multi-centa billion-dollar companies, and so I guess I always found like when I was building. Um, I always felt like I was more in tune when I was angel investing at the same time. So it was like angel
Mhm.
investing while you're building, and just kind of made me feel like, or first gave me kind of a bond with another CEO because I invest in somebody else's company,
Mhm.
and I get to learn their style, learn, how they grow their business, all different things. So it's kind of it's a great way just to get some insights, on things. And then yeah, so it's kind of um it's a well coordinated effort, I guess.
Hmm. This makes sense to be able to learn from a bunch of other people while having a little bit of skin in the game, not necessarily for the financial purpose of it, but just that feeling of being involved, I think is really special. What are things that you are involved in outside the technology industry that you think are pretty impactful on you?
What am I involved in outside of the well, I mean, I have four daughters, so
That's a
those
big
are
commitment.
four people. And their ages range from 17 down to 4 months. So and we actually have two young daughters, 9 months and 4 months, and just try to figure out how you do that.
How do you
That's science, by the way. We did that with science.
Yeah, I quickly ran
Yes.
that. I was like, interesting. Cool that you're able to do that with science. How are you able to create like cohesiveness in the family with such a wide age range of your daughters?
It's probably Julia, my wife, Julia, same mom for all of them. Um, Probably is like the cohesive element to all that. Uh, so maybe having a great partner is the answer there.
Famously, your partner is not just your romantic partner, but you've also built a pretty amazing business with her. Was there ever a time where you felt like that was pushed back on, or Did you ever feel that feeling of, are people going to look at this a certain way because
Hmm.
this is someone I'm romantically involved with?
Um, we kind of started it together, and with Renault Visage, our third co-founder. But we started it together, and so that was just always like how it was, and all that mattered were the results. And so
Love
as
that.
we just started to show more and more results, I mean, in fact, we spent the first 2 years of the company really bootstrapping the business along, and before we really took outside capital. And in doing that, we just it always felt like ours, and it was like kind of never in question. Certainly, there's investors that always said like, "Oh, can you do this?" And um, but it was the best. It was such a great experience. She's like the best partner one could have, both on the business and on the home side.
That's super amazing. Really, really inspiring as well. I think one of the things I've struggled with a bit is wondering whether romantic relationships would potentially hold me back. Um, I think this is something a lot of founders feel, which
Hmm.
is maybe I shouldn't date. I think I should be fully focused.
Hmm.
What would be your advice on that front? I'm 25.
Right. I
Oh my Lord.
Uh-oh, it stopped Waymo.
Oh, no way.
No.
That's so
See, we need
crazy.
the outdoor cam right now. That's
Yeah, we definitely need one.
Yeah. So 25. I um I'm in an era of balance. I guess like in my 20s I just like worked all the time, but also um kind of 20s and 30s, like relationship really helped kind of balance things out. So like it's maybe makes you more productive if because you learn to kind of coordinate your time better.
Mm,
So I'm in the pro relationship side.
cool. I love that. Do you think you're ADHD?
Uh, I don't know. It's like very in vogue to be ADHD. Um, but I would say maybe not, but certainly all the things I'm involved in and a little bit of impulsiveness might indicate that yes, it could be there, but I don't worry about it. Or I think any kind of these things that have been characterized as character defects, ADHD, or
Yeah,
on the spectrum or whatever else are actually, bipolar 2 or actually gifts, in a sense.
I would agree with
You know,
that.
so and the best thing to do is learn whatever how to kind of how to use those your traits to the benefit and to your advantage.
Do you think you have any traits where you feel like you don't necessarily fit in the conventional Silicon Valley culture as a result of those?
Well, I guess like the conventional Silicon Valley culture is like being unconventional.
Hmm.
And so it's like we welcome all shapes and sizes. It's like a great thing to be a kind of misfit and so on.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was got all these like interesting early lessons, especially on misfits on PayPal Mafia. I was involved as an angel investor in PayPal when it was getting started and got to see that like really amazing group.
It's interesting that that ended up resulting in value for the core thing you were working on. So was there anything that happened as a result of you angel investing that caused you to later on continue working with PayPal?
Well, I mean, just that, like it was PayPal took off. The rest of the internet economy had gone through this terrible crash. It was a period where everything required very heavy infrastructure. We hadn't developed all this to, you had to build out your own server systems. And so building a company was very, very expensive. And when things teetered, they like collapsed hard. And it was a big crash, except for, a handful of companies like Amazon and Netflix and PayPal and so on. And I, was in kind of like the front row seat watching this extraordinary team build this business, and I saw this payments thing taking off, and spoke to Peter and Roelof Botha, who was CFO at the time at PayPal, now at Sequoia, and we talked about, what would you build to kind of augment or build on top if PayPal opened an API, and we all came up with remittance. And so I launched a remittance business with my business partner, Alan Braverman. And we started a company called Zoom, XOOM. And, we'd seen the example of Western Union. Western Union was charging all these really high fees, sometimes
Basically
15,
usury.
20% usury, especially to new immigrants that, weren't like well moneyed or anything. And we built this business. It started to work, and kind of took it from there. So in Eventbrite, I always say I'm kind of a one-trick pony. Eventbrite's effectively a payments company. Instead of
Hmm.
e-commerce or remittance, it's ticketing, and
Interesting.
it was originally built on top of PayPal as well, and runs billions of dollars in payment volume today.
That's fascinating because I think when people talk about the PayPal mafia, they talk about the people that spun out of the company, but thinking of it as like the platform and knowledge that ended up impacting other companies is
Hmm.
actually really interesting because you having built your next company on the same platform that you sort of had your initial kind of alumni cohort of talented
Right.
people is actually really cool.
Well, I was more, I mean, I wasn't an employee of PayPal, so I would say I was more of a PayPal Mafia groupie. And
Oh.
but a very observant groupie, and watched a lot of these the team members there, um, and learned a lot from them. But it served me extremely well with Zoom and Eventbrite. We took both companies public, one in 2013, the other in 2018.
Is there anyone from PayPal that you deeply admire that you don't think is as like discussed in sort of Silicon Valley conversations?
That's a great question. I think Orloff both like is behind the scenes and isn't like scrutinized and covered and whatever, but he's orchestrating um, the venture funds at Sequoia.
Mm.
He's definitely in that canon, but doesn't get the same coverage as like a David Sachs, who's brilliant. Just saw him in DC last week, and is now this big personality with his like all-star pod. Um, or Reid Hoffman, who's out there, or certainly Elon.
Do you think it's important to necessarily be a big personality? What if you just want to kind of do your thing and focus? There's this culture right now, and we're contributing to it as we speak, of constantly
Right.
making things, shooting things, posting. Do you think there's a world where you could just not do that and still do well?
Well, I mean, big personalities, like in many ways can't help it. My friends all tell me
Mm,
I have a little personality, like, or very little personality. But
maybe you need to change your friends.
yeah, they're terrible. Uh, but no, I think that they're just very interesting people. I ended up going to college with a lot of them. Keith Rabois, Reed. We were all at Stanford at the same time.
It's
David
interesting that you
Sachs.
say you have a little personality because I have heard of you from like uh, a bunch of my friends. You've been involved with helping Coco Zoo with his venture fund. You've been involved with Z Fellows, and it seems like you now have a big brand around being a little personality, I guess, which is
I'll
kind of
take it.
interesting. I don't know if I agree with the little personality verbiage, but definitely less
Well,
grandiose and more precise.
look, I just want to, I don't know, maybe that's why I was like giving the shout out to Ruloff, is because he's really more behind the scenes helping his founders, um, like really do great things. And, my goal is like, it's time to kind of pay it forward. And that's what like Corey Levy does incredibly well with Z Fellows, and he identified early on as like, where the next great founders are coming out of. Ethan Thornton dropping out of MIT as a freshman at 19 years old and founding Mock, or Steven Schwartz, like trading sneakers at age 14, with Cameron, his best friend, and starting WAP, now over 1 billion and growing rapidly in GMV. Like these are the future leaders, like in the making as we speak today.
You actually invested in Aru, if I'm
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
mistaken, and they sort of have that similar energy. Um, Seems like despite being a serial entrepreneur, you like to back first-time founders. Why is that?
Like first time founders are kind of like, like young Marines in combat. They're like run right into the battle. They just kind of go for it. Um, and they also kind of see the world. Mike Moritz used to always say this. They see the world like in a way that like I can't, now see it. They see how change is happening long, long before it. They see around corners, and um, and that's where you find the kind of like Brian Chesky's with Airbnb, or Ben Silverman with Pinterest, or
Mm.
the Ramp team. Like they know where the world is going, and that's what I see in Steven Schwartz at WAP and Ethan Thornton at Mock.
What type of founder do you think might exist as a new archetype that isn't super common currently?
Might exist as I mean, what I'd like to see more of, and I'm starting to see um, little occurrences of it, is somebody that didn't have to go to MIT or Harvard or IIT, but is maybe from like way out in India or Asia, where they're self-taught, um, and can kind of break in
Mm.
and use the power of the internet that like can democratize so much, and be a substitute for these elite institutions that we still rely so much on.
Hmm. What do you think Silicon Valley as an industry, especially VCs, need to do to actually tap into that global talent?
um, I wish I had the answer for that. Who was working on that was Daniel Gross, was with Pioneer,
Yeah.
and then this darn AI thing got in the way, so he had to like jump into that revolution. But yeah, Pioneer I thought was like a clever approach, that showed some early kind of signal. Um,
These hills are insane.
well, we're gonna make it to the bridge. I thought we were gonna be
We,
stuck in traffic the whole time,
yeah, I
and
mean,
my blood pressure has like gone down astoundingly since like we got out of that
that
RSA traffic.
that traffic was pretty bad. Um, Also surprisingly just rogue. No logic to how it's working.
No logic.
Pretty chaotic. All right, so we lost the camera for a second there due to overheating. Small technical difficulty that we will resolve at some point. But when the camera was out, we started talking about the Walt Disney Museum, which is right around the corner, and it's in the Presidio. Pretty
Straight
close
ahead,
by.
yeah, into the Presidio. That's federal land, and the Disney family decided to build this not in Los Angeles, that build it away, kind of out of the way, because it's not intended to be this like kind of place for kids to go and have fun. It's actually all about Walt's life,
Mm.
and I love to go there. It's inspirational for me. It's structured in kind of chronological order of all the things, his whole life and what he achieved in each stage of it. But I love bringing startup teams there and founders there. It's very inspirational. You get the kind of goosebumps when you see just in each era how he reinvented himself in the company, just truly on that, in that kind of genre of Steve Jobs or
Mm.
Elon Musk or so on.
Is there a specific part of it that really resonated with you?
I think
without giving spoilers.
I won't give the spoilers. I'll just say, from a structural, it just moved from like component to component.
I'm gonna
And
take
we're
a bit
going
of
on
a
the bridge.
risky
Yeah,
turn.
go
Yeah,
for it. I don't see. Oh, yeah, there is a no U-turn.
Yeah.
That'd be great to get ticketed.
I know
on
you
the
have
pod.
you have a meeting to run
Thank
to,
you
so
for
want to make sure to drop you off and
illegal
get
moves.
that
Yes.
5 stars.
But so go see the Walt Disney Museum in the Presidio, and yeah, it's really the transition from each era and seeing how he built upon his expertise and how he found all this creative talent to do these amazing things.
Was there a Kevin era that you think not a lot of people know about, in which you were a very different person than you are today?
I'm like one of these like type of people that doesn't like talking about myself that much. So like I'm gonna
That's
dodge
increasingly
that
rare.
question.
That's an increasingly rare trait.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. You'll have to interview Julia, my wife.
yeah, would love would love that.
Yeah.
That would be super fun to do. It's interesting that you really like to talk about other people and their journeys and draw inspiration from them, and not really talk about yourself. Those types of people tend to be the most interesting when they do talk about themselves. So I'm going to push back here and make you talk about yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just curious to learn more about like the evolution of Kevin.
I was suspended my senior year in high school for 5 days, because
That's
myself
surprising.
and a friend, we sent out a letter to the whole school that said school was closed. They had found asbestos, and that was my like kind of senior prank. Thought it was a good one, but
that is pretty good.
we actually sent a physical letter, and we were on kind of student leadership, so we ended up with the kind of nonprofit stamps.
Mm-hmm.
And so by doing what we did was a federal offense because we committed mail fraud.
Oh God!
And so we had to go talk to the postmaster general and lecture, that it's a felony and all this sort of stuff. But it's not the worst thing to get suspended your second semester of your senior year in high school.
But I do love that. I mean, I think some of the most brilliant founders are a little bit mischievous, and in ways that aren't necessarily hyper overt. It's rarely stories of like outright violence or massive in your face sort of troublemaking. It's usually kind of more sneaky hacking like maneuvers.
Clever, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, a little more overt was that, well, there was that counter lawsuit that talked about Rippling CEO.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, he's brilliant. But he had this like interesting like academic background, what was he on he was like the editor of the Harvard Crimson, but then almost got kicked out of school. And that's like a perfect founder in my view.
Yeah,
off the record.
It's completely off the record, of course. We're keeping that on the record. That's interesting.
On the record, off the record.
Yeah, I think it's cool that company building is kind of this Game of Thrones like thing now, where we have all these tribes and these teams and corporate espionage and all this drama. I find it really fun, and I really loved watching the show Silicon Valley. One of the things I think a lot of people that don't live here get to see is sort of that like inside scoop and the drama and the stuff that happens without naming names. Give us some tea. Give us something that happened that was kind of dramatic and interesting. I love that stuff.
I'll go back to the previous point, which was like, I think that like every member of the original PayPal like exec team had built a bomb when they were kids.
The fact that I'm from Egypt means that would not be a good approach for me, but I will leave that to the PayPal mafia.
like that. Yeah, this was all pre 9/11. Like that's what you did when you were a kid. Is like you blew things up. You like
Mm.
yeah, but it's an interesting pattern. I'm just saying. Hopefully that it
So when
gets
you
copy
guys do
patched,
it, it's
not the wrong.
mischievous and cool.
Yeah.
When we do it,
Oh God, such a double standard, huh?
that's so funny. My dad used to actually diffuse like or work with like explosives
Oh my
on
God.
oil rigs, and when 9/11 happened, you can imagine it wasn't necessarily the nicest sort of role to have, having an
Oh,
Egyptian
God.
man operating essentially explosives on U.S. oil rigs.
Wow, was this in Texas?
This was in Louisiana.
Louisiana, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
My brother was born there. I was actually born in Egypt, and moved to the U.S. when I was 17.
Yeah, that's amazing. How's your facility of Egyptian? Or
It's actually, so the other day someone asked me, "Can you say butterfly in a different language?" My first language was French, and then Arabic, and then I learned English. And I couldn't remember the word for butterfly in Arabic or in French.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy." My mind has started to think more in English, and interestingly, I think my language is very like Silicon Valley
right.
coded. But this has been the place that's like felt most like home for me, and so I wouldn't really say I often feel homesick. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Like, because you came over here when you were 17.
I came over here when I was 17, but I was often sort of playing video games and building like Minecraft servers, and so a lot of my friends were already on US servers.
Yeah.
And
can you get citizenship if you have US servers?
We should. That should be the case.
Residing on a US server?
Definitely should be the case. Like, I need to just petition USCIS and be like, "Look, guys, I know I was in Egypt, but technically I was spending all my time in Ohio in a server farm. So let me in, please."
That's fair.
That's so funny. Do you play any video games?
I don't. Like, I'm not a big gamer.
Do you make
way back
any
when
art?
Quake and like used to play like early games, but that's been a long time. Do I make any art? Like, I don't know if I have as many creative outflows at the moment. What about yourself?
I love making music, and
what's your instrument choice?
I sing. I also play
wow.
piano and guitar, but I mostly like to sing, and I've been learning a little bit of production.
Amazing.
So that's been fun.
What applications do you use?
Mostly Logic in terms of a DAW, but it's technical, man. Like I obviously like I like to code. I like technical pursuits, but with music specifically, I think I enjoy the creative aspect more than the technical components of it.
So you're just like playing.
Yeah, just love to sing, record it. Actually, I have like a mic in the front there, and I'll sometimes just park the car and record here.
Amazing.
So it's been pretty fun. Yeah. In a lot of ways, though, I think company building can be a creative pursuit to a very large extent. There's so many creative challenges involved with it. What's one like small creative thing that not a lot of people know about at Eventbrite that you did that you're pretty kind of secretly proud of?
Well, Eventbrite was like, growth was all about like a viral loop. Like, events aren't what you would say they're they're not it's not as viral as like Instagram, where every creator is also, or every consumer is also a creator. It's a little more lopsided towards creators, but nonetheless, like a lot of when you're crafting the product, you're finding ways that incentivize users to share. and publish free events for free and just try to drive this flywheel, because there's like, like something magical about, if like everyone on the planet just disappeared, if I guess people wouldn't publish events then, but the idea is that, could you almost like run this with like no one on the team, that it would just, people keep publishing and creating and growing the platform. It was a lot of the work around that, and during the different eras of the social networks that have like come and grown, how you use each one of those to drive the growth of it. And Eventbrite today has to keep doing that. It's has a lot of work ahead of it.
I love seeing the transitions of talented entrepreneurs from one industry to one that's completely different, from an events platform to home security. How does that happen? And
I think it's just like an interest in, you want to like exercise a new area of the brain and go after a whole new challenge. And in the case of home security, it's fun trying to fight the bad guys, solving crimes, solving this problem. And then we're doing a lot of unique things. Because we have this like dense and rich set of sensors out around a home, we can actually render for the consumer and for our team. We actually have a team in Nevada 24/7 monitoring the homes with people. So we have, the computers monitoring computer vision, then it escalates to people. And you can see how that grows over time. But we have what we call the dollhouse, and we take this like kind of virtual representation of the consumer's home, and render all the activity happening around the home. Because if we have 40 or 60 different sensors, visual, LiDAR, and so on, like you can't possibly, as a human, like see and understand and take in all that information. So we render it as this like kind of game view, which, I probably should be a gamer, or I should pick it up late in life. Because, we effectively are trying to display an immense amount of information in a gaming format.
Interesting. I love this idea of simulating the world to actually make the world better again. And while games may seem trivial, it is kind of the cutting edge of simulation software and rendering of environments. And if we can have these like perfectly rendered environments in a virtual space, then maybe we can change those virtual environments and potentially download a better world for ourselves. Is there any simulation software or game engines that you think are going to allow us to build things in the world that we couldn't have in the past?
There's like really two rendering engines out there. There's Unreal, and there's the one that we use that I just forgot the name of, that Sequoia backed many moons ago.
Oh
my God, how could I just forget the name?
Yeah,
I'm senile.
I know. I also know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But
it's funny because I remembered Unreal, which we don't use. Unreal is better for like realistic, great texture mapping
Unity?
and things. Unity,
Yes.
Thank you.
I was
David
gonna try to
Helsgaard is the
encourage you.
founder of that. I made him. I won't tell this story.
Yeah, now I'm curious to hear it off camera. Whenever
Yeah.
someone says I won't hear, I won't tell this.
Well, no,
story.
I loaned him
Curiosity's
money
fun.
when he was starting the company, and I should have like just taken shares.
Ah.
He's a great guy. He's in Denmark, is it Denmark? Doing kind of clean tech investing.
Cool.
I'm gonna be late.
Oh.
Wait, no, it's 1:14. No, we're not gonna be late. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
we'll get there at 1:26.
Yeah, awesome.
Perfect.
You nailed it. That's incredible.
Some components needed a little
Yeah.
bit of enhancement, but glad we're getting you there on time. as long as I don't mess up a turn or something, which no guarantees on that front.
Kakari, great restaurant. Have you been to Kakari?
No, I haven't.
At some point, you should go.
Okay, I will.
Its sister restaurant is Evia in Palo Alto. That it's like a popular place for the whole venture startup folks.
I'll definitely check it out. Have you been to Cotonia?
I love Kentucky.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Have you tried? Okay, if you're ever there on Saturday, try their carbonara pizza. They only do it on Saturday. It is
I don't think I've ever had it.
so good. Best pizza I've ever had. Absolutely incredible.
Here we are in Jackson Square. There's the Battery. This is Venture Central.
Do you feel a sense of patriotism to San Francisco as a city?
Yeah, I went through like a lot of emotions of, like as it went, like as it really got bad. But I do, yeah, I don't know, like is the term patriotism? It's just a sort of, you feel a sense of obligation to helping be a steward of the city. And so Julie and I have just gotten involved in a number of different things over the years, but then we kind of had to especially help out on this kind of restoring the city when it hit rock bottom a couple of years ago.
I think city pride is a lot. It's a I think it's a way where you can create impact quicker and more tangibly. That's not to say I don't think people should have national pride or pride of belonging to larger groups, but I do think there's something special about caring about a very small thing a whole lot.
Yeah, like I never quite, I had always kind of transcended the city a lot, thinking, I want to change the world, like I want to build these great companies. But then when we saw our backyard kind of fall apart, that had to be the thing to change my perspective. We were all like considered, I forgot what, there's some kind of phenomenon where if you're like, it's like the boiling frog, like things went really bad and we just stood around and it happened right in front of us. It was crazy. 2 people dying every day on average from drug overdoses. It was crazy. Just, the filth in the streets and so on.
Yeah.
But you see a very different mindset than I would say pre-COVID.
It hit me pretty hard on Market Street. This guy was on the floor, like frothing on the mouth, and I did like CPR and like mouth to mouth on him, and it was actually pretty gruesome. And,
you did?
Yeah, and
it's good you're trained in it. Everyone should be trained.
Yeah,
in CPR.
I was trained in it and hadn't used it really until until that one moment. It was for because I used to lifeguard.
I used to lifeguard.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You grew up in Northern California.
In Northern California.
But not the Bay.
No, in the Bay, in a town called Orinda. It's in the Berkeley Hills.
Okay.
Through the Caldecott Tunnel. So I, worked at a pool at summers and lifeguarded. One save, pulled a toddler out of the pool.
Heroic.
But good for you for that. I hope you got some kind of shot after.
I was scared. I was a little bit scared because I didn't have like personal protective equipment.
Yeah. How are you? How long did it take before an ambulance came?
It was the ambulance was pretty quick. It was like right downtown, so that was fortunate. But I could tell they were a little bit annoyed and had this kind of feeling of like another overdose. And I carried like Narcan since then. Yeah. That's a good idea. But it was
so that's what it was. It was some fentanyl overdose.
Some overdose. That was pretty sad, and honestly is something that every once in a while just like flashes into my mind as a negative event.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely something that I think we should care about, not just because it impacts like our direct quality of life, but I think people look at San Francisco with a sense of resentment a little bit that we're able to create these like massive companies but aren't able to solve basic not
Yeah.
basic, but like, core problems that define success, which is, are people healthy and well?
Hmm.
So I do think that matters.
I I don't know. The fentanyl path is interesting because you had this evolution of like opioids have always been a challenge, like hundreds of years, if not more back. And then you had this use in pharma of like over prescribing
Hmm.
them, and you started to have those overdoses. Then you had the synthetic, like powerful, fentanyl, carfentanil, um, kind of supercharge it. It was like almost like a um, dystopian like tech
Hmm.
innovation that then just the deaths like skyrocketed.
I think we forget that these small molecules are a form of technology,
Right.
uh, and
And easily, send it through the mail,
yeah,
like all these ways that,
highly portable,
yeah,
highly destructive. Um, yeah. Are you interested at all in biotech or in investments in computational biology?
I am. But I found that like, what I love the most is just, growth, like an impact.
Mm.
It's, on the like drug discovery side or so on, it's a challenging kind of difficult path that you're often not the, kind of like steward of your own kind of destiny that
Mm.
you um and so yeah, unfortunately, years back I think we thought that we would like see more on the biopharma side, but when you talk about computational biology, what are you referring to?
Um, Personally, where I would say I'm most interested is in genetic engineering.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good application for large language models, given like
Mm-hmm.
genes are text based.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's not just a problem that is like a bio problem. I think there's also almost like a level of like product design
Mm-hmm.
thinking that goes into creating new um, therapies.
Mm-hmm.
So one interesting experience I had was I was like living in this lab with this company I invested in that's doing really cool work in hormone monitoring, and
Mm-hmm.
they created a genetic ink that glows fluorescent red or fluorescent green based on your hormone levels.
Mm.
And I was like the first man to have that injected, and it was a
Oh
really
wow.
cool experience where I was like, this is new.
What do you do when it's glowing red?
So it glows more red as my estrogen levels increase,
Mm-hmm.
and so for now it's just essentially a hormone monitoring tool. Um, and there were periods in my life where my like testosterone levels were pretty low, and it
Mm-hmm.
was impacting me uh, negatively in a few ways, and ended up fixing that,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps overcorrecting, and then it impacted me negatively in
Got it.
completely different ways. And now I think I'm at a level where I feel like I have the right amount of um, sort of classically testosterone like drive,
Mm-hmm.
ambition, quote unquote, like masculinity,
Mm-hmm.
um, but not too much where it makes me antisocial.
Got it. Got it.
I don't know if
That's
that was
incredible.
politically incorrect, but
No.
it's fine. I think if you're doing stuff for long enough, you're eventually going to accidentally do something that makes people very upset, and you don't even know that you're doing it.
I absolutely have
That's
seen
not
it
good.
enough that um, anything that one does that has an impact on the world is there's going to be a lot of opponents to it.
Mm.
It's just inevitable. Does that sound cynical?
It sounds true. I think we should still try to do good things, but the idea that no matter what you do, there's going to be pushback isn't really fun.
Yeah, and I mean, as we see, there's certain people that when they do things, no matter what they do, it'll be heavily criticized.
True. Do you think there's also the inverse of that where people might be doing bad things, but they kind of have this moral force. Like,
Oh, that's a really good yeah, framework for getting away with evil deeds.
mm,
Yeah, it's like you don't need to be this person with the like shaved head inside of a volcano, um, you know, trying to destroy the world. Like now you do it under the guise of like Mother Teresa or something.
mm. I think we've seen that happen a couple times,
Yeah.
and it is scary.
I wish I bet we could look up how many Waymos are on the street, can't we? There must be some filing,
There's,
public record of.
I swear, a third of the cars are Waymos now.
I'm so happy.
It's
I want it to be all like I honestly I would be great to get rid of all cars because it would eliminate all traffic because the Waymos should theoretically be able to drive us without um, any kind of gridlocking or traffic.
yeah.
I,
Also, the fact that they don't need to park massively eases
Yes.
the
and you
pressure
don't
on the
need
city.
nearly as many cars.
They also are very respectful. Like whenever I'm trying to cut into traffic and it's a Waymo, I'm like, okay, cool. Like they're usually nicer to me than the person who's gonna honk at me super hard.
Yes. Unfortunately, they're too respectful, and so the playbook now, I think it's maybe the conspiracy is it's Uber drivers will like cut in front. Like if you're somebody turning left into oncoming traffic and there's a Waymo there, you can just go because the Waymo will stop.
Yeah.
There's not going to be an accident or a careless error. So that happened. I was in the Waymo, and I mean, I almost like got thrown into the front seat. It stopped so fast for a
Interesting.
car.
Overly altruistic
Overtly,
technology is
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
interesting.
It was an overt, like very clearly intentional.
I'm sure they
turn.
have a parameter, probably it's multiple parameters
Yeah.
that determine the aggressiveness of the driving.
Mm.
I'm curious how they make these trade-offs. Are they like, well, if we dial it up 10%, things are going to be far more efficient, but there's like slightly more risk. Like, who are the people in charge of these decisions, and how do they weigh it? It's a fascinating ethics problem.
Well, it's probably multidisciplinary. There's like a weather team. There are different teams, but no, I don't pretend to know exactly. It would seem like you would want it universally overseen. But it is what statistically like far, far lower than now that millions and millions of miles have been driven, far lower incidence of accidents.
So, as I drop you off to this next meeting,
Yeah.
a reminder that you are running a venture fund, A Star, that invests. Do you do pre-seed? You do pre-seed and seed, and then
We
B as
love
well.
pre-seed. We do, I mean, checks, all the way down to 250K or sometimes even lower, but like 2, 3, 4, $5 million in pre-seed seeds, and then we occasionally do a B and beyond, but our focus is really around the seed side, and we're generalists, so we look at we're focused on finding the next great founder, and that could be in any category. It could be AI, it could be in defense, it could be we're in a company called General Biological, which is a synthetic biotech company. So they're producing industrial chemicals using fermentation and doing this at lower costs than extracting it from the ground.
Very cool. I think they were spoken about in a YC how to build a deep tech company video. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. But super cool that you're investing in like synthetic biology, and being a generalist makes sense for you. You've done a lot of different things, and I think being a generalist is actually like pretty authentic to your career path.
We also don't know where the world is always going, and so you rely on the brightest people that see where the future is to take you there. And you know, I like we don't want to be cordoned off into one certain area, and we're excited about. There's so much innovation happening in so many different areas these days. So um, it's been great.
I'm
But
excited
thank
to
you.
see what you back. Coco Zoo speaks really highly of the support you've given him, having uh, backed
Co-
his firm.
Coco's is super talented.
Um,
He's he's great.
so
I think this is a one-way street, right? Second, or is it? No. Oh yeah, it's the right way.
cool.
Or is it? You would think the street I'm on, I would know if it's. We're going right back to where we started. This is
Yep.
perfect.
I'm excited to see what you. Oh, let me let her cross. Excited to see what you do on the investing side. Fresh capital, really interesting time to be investing, and I do want to try Sauron once I have a home. That will be a useful product to use for sure.
We'll be ready for you.
I will illegally kind of stop here.
Perfect. All right. Thank
Such a
you so
pleasure,
much.
man.
That was amazing.
That was super fun.
All right, I better skedaddle. It's
Yeah.
1:30.